Hello and welcome to another Health and Sanity call with me, Dr. Joe. For those of you who don't know me, I am a professional speaker who helps busy people stay healthy, sane, and productive. And I'm doing these calls because we all need to stay healthy, sane, and productive during these difficult times through the pandemic. And if you remember on our very first call, I opened it up with the serenity prayer, just reminding us there's so much stuff right now that we can't control. I mean, the virus, what the crazy people are doing, what the governments are doing, state, local, and federal, if they're doing enough, if they're not, all of those kind of fears are out there. Not to mention that I was told that I'm high risk. Give me a break. How can I be old? I don't like that at all. Lots of things we can't control. But I want us to focus on, with these calls, all the things that we can control, because there are so many. We've talked about deep breathing. We talked about yoga, and Ronnie did a brief little yoga class for us on our chair. We talked about how to stock the pantry, how to get into this so-called new normal. We had John Watkus give us his perspectives on the lessons in the circle of life. And we've had so many people talk about things that we can do, and I hope you're feeling somewhat empowered during this time. But I ran across Tara Clancy. She's also a professional speaker, and she's doing something that I really don't speak about much. It wasn't on my agenda, but she calls herself the sleep sensei because she talks about how nose breathing, so not just deep breathing or breathing, but just nose breathing can be our first line of defense, well, anytime, but certainly throughout the pandemic. So I wanted to introduce you to Tara. I think I'm pronouncing her name right. And she is a certified educator who specializes in breathing and sleep education. She works with sleep practitioners to teach them about it as well. And she also has a book called Is Your Sleep Making You Tired? So let me introduce you to Tara. Hi, Tara.
Hi, Joe. How are you today?
Well, I'm hanging in there. It's week 3. You know how that is.
Absolutely. I think we're all in the same boat trying to figure out how to adjust to this new normal.
It is. And they say that after this passes, we're going to be in this new normal, maybe forever. Many of us are going to be, it won't be just you and I working from home. There's going to be a lot of people working from home. So anyway, we're going to be talking today about nose breathing. As I mentioned, Dara, it wasn't something I really thought much about, although it brought back memories when I was reading about you, just about how my sister Diane was a mouth breather, and we shared a bedroom for many years growing up, and she was always the snorer. I heard all about that. But other than the fact that it brings on snoring, and for me, I know if I ever wake up with a dry mouth, I know that I've been breathing through my mouth. But maybe you can enlighten us about nose breathing, would you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. And like you said, it's important to do any time, but particularly now while we're all trying to sort of put ourselves in the best place possible to stay safe from the virus. So if you think about why do we need to even think about nose breathing? It's because breathing is really our most basic need, right? If you think about food, we could go for weeks if we had to, right? And there have even been people on hunger strike that have lasted for months. So it's really important. But we have some time before we would, succumb to not eating. Then we think about water. And water is critical to us too. But you can survive for a couple of days without drinking water. But what about breathing? You have mere minutes when you think about air. And that's why it's really so fundamental. It's the only thing that we do all day, every day. And so it has to go to the back of our minds, because otherwise we'd never get anything done, right? It has to just be this automatic thing. But unfortunately, our lifestyles in this modern world lead us to adopt unhealthy breathing habits. And the number one unhealthy breathing habit is switching from the nose to the mouth. And if you think about, they're both openings, right? You can take in air through both, but it's almost like when you drive a car, and if you were to get a flat, you have a donut tire in there that you can put on for an emergency, and it'll get you to where you need to go. But your first order of business is to get that regular full-size tire back on, right? Your manual will tell you that smaller tire is just for an emergency use. And the mouth is the same thing for us in terms of breathing. It's just for emergencies. So let's say we get a cold and we end up with a lot of congestion, and then we have to switch to breathing through our mouths because we need the air, right? But when that cold resolves, you want to get back to nose breathing as soon as you can. And we'll talk about why in a minute. But there are other instances for other people where that congestion, like you get with a cold, ends up being a pervasive kind of thing. And you adopt mouth breathing for the long term. And then you really are now in an unhealthy breathing habit that really affects your overall lifestyle.
That's excellent. That was a great analogy. I like that about the spare tire in our trunk. Well, I don't have a trunk, but the back of my car anyway. Yeah, I never really thought about that way. So
Yeah.
So how do we know because I haven't really thought about it. I think I'm breathing through my nose, but how do I know that I'm breathing through my nose?
Well, first let's think about there are two kinds of instances where you won't end up nose breathing. So in the first one, it's if you have some kind of chronic sort of condition that would prevent breathing through your nose. So one instance may be if somebody has a physical blockage, like a deviated septum, or my daughter has a friend who had a playground accident, broke her nose, and because of the way the nose healed, she physically cannot pass air through one nostril now.
Wow.
So that's one case where you're going to end up having to breathe through your nose because you're going to have to end up breathing through your mouth because the nose just isn't available. But then there are all other instances as well. Let's say if you think about what you and I are doing right now, and we're talking, right? And when you're talking, what do? You need to take in a large stream of air to keep the conversation flowing. That's mouth breathing right there. So there'll be times people who can't breathe through their noses because of the physical block, because of congestion or something like that. And then there are times when they're just everyday activities that we do that turn us into mouth breathers, like yawning. And so let's take a second now and look at why nose breathing is so important. And it kind of goes back to what you said before. If you wake up in the morning and your mouth is dry, you know that you've ended up breathing through your mouth during the night. Well, what happens when your mouth is dry? All that tissue in there is dried out. It can get small cracks in it, just become less healthy, which can make it more hospitable to different kinds of germs, including the coronavirus. So right from the get-go, if you are nose breathing, you can avoid drying out that tissue and making yourself more susceptible. But also, the other big thing that happens when you get dried out, you also get inflammation then. And so that ends up following you into the night. And that's the root of so many of the nighttime breathing problems that disrupt people's sleep.
So when you say inflammation within the mouth, in the throat?
Yeah, in the throat, and it can go up into the airway, because that's the other catch-22 as well. As soon as you start breathing through your mouth, your body knows that it's losing air somewhere. And so it says, hey, stop up that leak wherever it may be, and it produces mucus. So you end up with more congestion. And so it's, like I said, a real catch-22. You breathe through your mouth because maybe you're a little congested at the moment. Your body then creates more congestion, which makes nose breathing even harder. And then you end up having to breathe through your mouth longer.
That's fascinating. I also like you were talking about, what are we doing right now? We're talking. When we're talking, we're taking in oxygen. Oxygen is a way to get our voice out So can we talk and breathe through our nose at the same time?
Not
No.
unless you want to have a really long pause in between. We need to do it to maintain that flow. So there is an exercise that I do with clients to show them how to reset their breathing after a long time of speaking, because the other thing that it does too is it throws off the balance of gases in the blood. And when the balance is off, you can get increased congestion as well. So any of those behaviors that make you mouth breathe, like we're saying, talking, even something like yawning, or for me, I have a teenager, so I end up sighing a lot. That turns out to be mouth breathing too, because you end up blowing off a lot of gas. Dr. Joe, I'm sure you're familiar with carbon dioxide, right? And we have always thought about carbon dioxide as being a waste gas that we just blow off, but it turns out carbon dioxide plays a really essential role in the body. So when we throw off the balance of carbon dioxide to oxygen, we are preventing our bodies from running most efficiently.
Interesting.
And another time that people can end up mouth breathing when they don't really think about it is when you're exercising, right? You may be almost an exclusive nose breather, and then you get on that treadmill and your heart rate gets up and you're like, I could use a little more. And you suck in the air through your mouth. And it doesn't actually help you because, again, it's the balance of the carbon dioxide and the oxygen. You can think of it like this. One of the practitioners that I interviewed for my book explained it, used this analogy of a debit card. And he said, if you think of a debit card at the bank, you can go use that debit card to get out whatever money you have in the bank. The carbon dioxide is the same way. If you're exercising and you need more oxygen in your tissues, you need that carbon dioxide to release the release the oxygen from the blood into the muscle. Without the carbon dioxide as a debit card, you can have as much oxygen as you want in the blood, and it just can't get into the tissue. So your best bet for exercising is to stop mouth breathing and commit to exclusive nose breathing. I actually interviewed a dentist for my book as well. He's an airway dentist, which is why I interviewed him. And he told me a little story. He's been a marathon runner for 26 years. And after running 16 marathons, he learned about the benefits of exclusive nasal breathing while exercising. So he shifted, and there was a definite transition that he needed to do to get used to that. But since making that switch, he has run better times on those 10 marathons than he ever did on the other 16 when he was younger. So, and there's stories like that all around.
That's fascinating. And actually, I've got two thoughts for you. One is I must be a mouth breather when I'm exercising. See, I have a new part-time job. We didn't talk about this, but now that my speaking engagements have gotten canceled for the next few months, now that my granddaughter is not in school, I've become a part-time daycare provider. So my daughter and I are trading, our days so we can both get some work done, but also she's 2.5. So it's not like you can just let her run loose, right? Sure. They need a lot of time. So every morning, my daughter and I go running with my granddaughter in the stroller, but we always have some time where she gets out of the stroller and she runs with me and we race. And I noticed the other day she was going, and I said, are you out of breath? And she said, no, that's what you're doing. And I thought, oh my gosh, Tara's going to tell me. Right?
Yeah, that is so interesting how they notice what you're doing and then mimic it. Yeah.
Yeah, and she loves to mimic. If we're gardening and I'm on one knee, she's on one knee. If I get down on both knees, she goes on both knees. She imitates me exactly. So now I know when I'm running, I'm mouth breathing. I'm also thinking of another thing, because you talked about this dentist that you interviewed. Dentists always wear masks. Some of us might be wearing masks nowadays, I don't know. But if you have glasses, it can fog up. Does it fog up less with nose breathing or less with mouth breathing? Or is there a difference? Do you have any idea?
I have not worn a mask, so I cannot speak to that. But I know when I ski and I wear something and I have, sunglasses on, they really fog up. So I would imagine it would. But I will tell you, actually, this is a great way to segue to the next thing. The other value of nose breathing is that you can create nitric oxide, which is a natural antiviral. And so even if you are wearing a mask, they say you're always going to have those little gaps where something as small as a virus could get in. So it's essential even then to, do exclusive nose breathing so that you create this nitric oxide. And what's interesting about the nitric oxide is something that a lot of people aren't familiar with, because again, like carbon dioxide, we used to think nitric oxide was a waste gas, but it really isn't. But the interesting thing is, we found out with the original SARS epidemic back in 2003 that the coronavirus, the original coronavirus responsible for that, was susceptible to nitric oxide, and so they were using that as a treatment. And so just now in this current SARS-2 environment, as they're also calling it, the FDA just fast-tracked the approval of a machine that can deliver nitric oxide in order to be able to help, patients who are dealing with it. And what's great for us, when we know about nose breathing, and if we think about this nitric oxide, we can produce our own nitric oxide just by breathing in and out. And there's actually one thing that your viewers can do to increase the amount of nitric oxide, and it's when they take a regular breath in through the nose and just hum and exhale through the nose, because there's research that shows you can create as much as
you're humming as you're breathing in,
out. Breathe in through the nose, and on the exhale just hum, and you can create 7 times more nitric oxide by humming. So it's funny, I was, my daughter and I had to go into the store the other day, and of course everybody's waiting in a line 6 feet apart. And as we started getting closer, I was like, okay, let's start humming now, because I want to have the maximum amount of nitric oxide in my nose in case the virus does get in there. And so I was telling my mother too, who is older, and I'm worried about her. And I said, I want you to try and do some humming each day. And she said, oh, humming. And I said, well, just think of your favorite song and hum it, and you'll be really boosting the nitric oxide level in your nasal cavities, which will give you a much better chance of fighting off the virus if it does indeed get in there. So I think that's wonderful. When we have something, it's like you said, let's take control of our lives. Think about the things we can do. Think of a song you love, hum it, and then you'll feel good for the song. You'll be more protected because of the nitric oxide, and you'll be breathing through your nose.
And there you go. I think that's a good way to end this, because music is a wonderful way to lift your spirits. And most of you are kind of remember, back when you were in a car going to work, maybe that last song that you heard on the radio was kind of like the one that stuck with you. And if it was uplifting, maybe you had a good day. If it was, depressing, you kind of walked in with a little slumpier mood. Music does have that effect on us. So yes, so pick a good uplifting song to hum. What's your favorite song to hum, Tara?
Well, I have a lot. I'm really into music, but you know what a funny thing is the other day? I don't know if you remember the song. I think it was from the late 70s. It's called Funky Town.
Oh, yes, yes.
I saw myself humming that out of nowhere the other day, and I said, how did that get into my head? And then my 11-year-old said, oh, I was just playing that on TikTok. Apparently, some kid took the song and made a video of it. So the two of us are humming the same song from different generations, but we were having a great time. And it's like you said, music is so uplifting. So try it. And if you haven't heard Funky Town in a while, go to YouTube, put it on, watch it, listen, and hum.
There you go. That's great. Well, Tara, thanks for coming on the call and sharing about nose breathing. If you have any questions, would you put them in the chat box and we'll read them off? You can reach Tara at, her website is O2, as in like 0, the number 2, not spelled
the
out.
The letter O?
The letter O, the number 2,
yes.
Tara, Tara.org. And I mentioned she does have an ebook called Is Your Sleep Making You Tired? She has a lot of experience in this field. She got into it kind of like, I think how many of us do. I have a story as to why I got involved in wellness myself, and you can read all about her story as well on our website. So do any of you have any questions? Again, your chat box is over on the left-hand side. And
if I can just jump in for a sec, my book called Is Your Sleep Making You Tired is actually not out yet. It's due in June, but I do now have an ebook there for how to clear a stuffy nose. Because if there is anybody who has a chronically stuffy nose, I have my 3-step program that I use based on my work with a bunch of different health practitioners. So that is available there.
All right. So her website again is the letter O, the number 2, TARA, which is her name, .org, O-R-G.
Yeah, it's O2, like oxygen, the symbol for oxygen.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that was one question. Anybody else have another question for Tara? Mary Beth says, terrific information. Yeah, I mean, right, Mary Beth, I mean, this is something I just really hadn't thought about. And like I said, I know that I'm guilty at times if my granddaughter is imitating me. And like I said, she imitates everything that we do. She corrects us all the time too, Tara.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, if I say something about put on your pants, she'll say, they're shorts, you know? If I say, let's go take a bath, and she says, it's the shower, you know?
That's so funny.
So darn cute. And so I have to say,
well, I mean, it's how they learn, right? If they weren't watching us, they wouldn't be able to learn. It's like, why does a kid love a play kitchen? You know, a toddler love a play kitchen. You know, why do they love play vacuums? It's because what they see, it's what they see us doing all the time, right?
And
so it's good, but it does mean we have to be on our toes for sure, you know. And what I really love about the breathing thing is like I said in the beginning, it's in the back of the mind all the time. And so we don't realize that we have it as such a powerful tool to keep us healthy, you know. And I do have quizzes on my website, one about how to keep yourself safe during the coronavirus, and it is helping you figure out if you're showing the signs that you're mouth breathing. And then I have other ones specifically about sleep that will help you do, because the thing with sleep is it's a diverse range of symptoms where we don't necessarily think this means I'm not sleeping well, but this quiz will help you connect the dots a little bit. So it's good to look at now and get as much sleep as you can now while people aren't commuting and doing all that.
You know, that is really good advice. And I have mentioned this so many times. Now that we're not commuting, many of us are saving an hour a day. Now, maybe we're homeschooling on top of that. But this would be a really good time to get in the habit of getting to sleep at a more sensible hour. Most of us are not getting enough sleep. But that leads me to another question that we have. And that is, when it comes to sleep, when we're sleeping, I mean, how do we make ourselves nose breathe? I mean, we're asleep. How do we switch?
Well, if you are a chronic mouth breather like I was for years, I'll tell you exactly what I do, and I'll tell you what everybody in my house does. But when I first heard of it, like 4 years ago, I was appalled. So just prepare you with that, okay? But what people do now to help them get over the habit of mouth breathing is to put a small piece of first aid tape across the mouth. If you Google it, you will see it is everywhere now, because you know, so much more, you know, people are so much more aware. But it is really the only thing that can help you. People have chin straps too that you can buy. You know, I tried that. That was really cumbersome. But like I said, I was appalled when it was my osteopath that first suggested it to me, and I just thought, crazy. But I do it every night. And my daughter, who I mentioned is 11, she didn't want to try it. She started out just putting a small strip, like a half an inch strip going vertically. So it would maintain her lips, but it would give her, access here if she needed it. But now she's at the point where she too does use the piece of tape. So it's a strange thing when you first hear it, but it really does help you get over that habit, you know.
That's fascinating. All right. We're down to the last couple of minutes. So again, Tara, thank you very much. It's o2tara.org. If you want any more information, we are doing the calls Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I'll see you again on Friday. Thanks all for coming.
Thanks so much, Joe. I appreciate you having me.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.